One of these days, I'm going to belch right in this spot where I always say something to start the podcast, and it's going to be disgusting.
I always do that. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire, man.
Okay.
I'm a night rider.
All right.
Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher.
What is going on, bookworms, and welcome back to another episode of Bookmarks with Bump. Today is September 1st. August is over, the summer is almost over, and college football is upon us. Yes, I can hear it right now. Gus Johnson in the background. Down the sideline, touchdown! Colorado? Penn State? West Virginia? I don't know. What team's playing Saturday, big noon football? Whatever team is, they have the benefit of a commentator like Gus Johnson cheering for their team. Even though he's unbiased, every call he makes, it sounds like he's cheering like a fan. I love to watch the college football that's on Fox every week. I basically love college football, period. I don't care. I'll listen to it muted, really, which doesn't make sense. I'll watch it muted, listening to nothing, which is kind of like what listening to this podcast is. It's listening to nothing, a podcast about nothing. But it's a podcast about everything all at once. You know, I go through the bookmarks that I've stashed away on the shelf little by little, and it's just another beautiful day in the bodega for you bookworms to hop back into another episode. So I'm coming off of a euphoric 4 right now. If you can't tell by my voice, I am just very, what's the word I'm looking for? Tantalized by the running that I've been doing over the last couple weeks. Since wrapping up the Torrington Road Race, I signed up for a 5K that's coming up next week, and I've also I have my sights set on turkey trot, something that I've never done before. Usually I play a big flag football game every Thanksgiving, and I probably will again this year. But I'm also thinking about doing a turkey trot, whether it be I think this one is a 10K, which is a challenge. It's something I've never done before. I actually skipped right from 5Ks and 5-mile races into a half marathon. I've never ran a 10K before. So I'm interested to see what kind of pacing I could develop throughout that style of race. It'll be fun to, I guess, not watch because I'll be doing it, but it'll be fun to find out what limits I could push out there. And when I'm out there running right now, it's like I'm not really pushing myself that much. Some days I am more than others. I'm really listening to my body, but I'm making sure that I'm doing 4 miles 5 days a week, hitting 20 miles at this point before my training schedule opens up in the beginning of October. And I just really want to focus on my gait, focus on my form and technique and breathing, and really all of the things that help you perform in the moment. Which leads me to my first thread that I have bookmarked here from Twitter is strength training for performance. I found this while I was scrolling one day and thought, this is great because right now what I'm doing with my brother in the gym is a little bit of hypertrophy. I want to focus on building lean mass with him, and that's really the main goal. You know, he came to me about 8-9 months ago and said, listen, man, it's time. I'm ready to get healthy. What are we going to do? And I said, we're going to pack some muscle onto that body to make your metabolism run a little faster. However, there are different ways to train for different avenues. Everybody has different goals. And if your goal is similar to mine, which is performance, this is perfect. We have Reed Strength at Coach Jeff Reed. This guy is Jeff with a G. So I remember being younger, whenever I would see this name pop up, I think he was a skateboarder, man. I can't remember what his last name was, but he'd spell his name like this, and I always say, who's Geoff? Safe to say I've grown a lot since then. Anyway, Reed Strength, how to strength train to improve performance in any sport. Most people train in specific ranges and positions that mirror their sport. ATG exercise taught me to do the opposite. Train the ranges, movements, and areas of the body that my sport of choice misses. All sports include repetitive motions that create imbalances. But if we work from the assumption that the body is designed to work correctly as a whole unit, then strength training in sport-specific positions would only serve to accentuate those imbalances. which makes perfect sense. Okay, take a picture for example, which is actually what the picture on this tweet is, so don't say I'm plagiarizing here. But a pitcher is using the same arm over and over, overhead, throwing, using that shoulder consistently, right? So you'd say that their throwing arm is much stronger than their opposite arm. However, if you want to be better at your sport, you think, okay, I need to train my throwing arm. Now, there is truth to that. However, if you don't focus on the opposite arm, you got to think about the muscles that are in between one shoulder from the other, your back, your chest. Everything in between is going to favor the right side of your body if you're a righty, or the left side if you're a lefty. So in order to keep yourself a whole unit, you need to train the opposite side. Conventional weight programs built around, this is continuing into the tweets. Conventional weight programs built around the powerlifting big three, bench, squat, and deadlift, don't address the issue. This is because powerlifting includes repetitive motions, just like any other sport, creating imbalances. The better approach is to identify weak links that your sport misses and fill in the gaps. And that's another reason why when I'm weight training, I like to do auxiliary lifts that are single arm, right? So you're doing single arm rows and you're really focusing on using those stabilizing muscles to move throughout the whole full range of motion. And you'll notice on one side of your body you may be weaker than the other, and that's okay. You just continue to train and you continue to build muscle in those areas and stability in those areas. A lot of times it's not even the working muscles that are causing these imbalances. It's the stabilizing muscles that aren't being used as much as the other side. The thread goes on to say, for example, basketball is mostly played in a quarter squat position. The knees will rarely, if ever, get into a full range knee bend when playing hoops. And surprise, surprise, knee pain is very common for basketball players. But this is why basketball players can improve their knees with full range slant squats, focusing on driving up the squat strength below parallel. Because these are ranges of strength not trained by basketball itself. So that's interesting. I've never done slant squats, but it makes complete sense. I don't sink all the way down when I'm doing squats. I don't really, I don't like to go past parallel with a lot of lifts and put a lot of strain on the ligaments. However, when you use something like a slant, a slant block, you're taking away the risk by already being in that position, allowing yourself to get lower depth without going past parallel with your knees. It goes on to say, so when it comes to sports and life, I think you're only as strong as your weakest links. Figure out what's missing and work from there. And that's what a perfect way to end that thread, actually, because that's the truth. When you're in the gym working out, you may be looking at a part of your body and saying, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that. For my case, actually, I can look in the mirror and see one side look a lot different than the other. I notice that my left leg is a little bit leaner than my right leg. And I think a lot of that is where I start when I'm running. I'm always propelling off of the right leg. I'm always using my right foot to get myself started whenever I'm going. And I notice there's more strength in my right leg than there is in my left leg. For whatever reason, I'm not necessarily sure what I can attribute that to other than the slants that are in the roads or trails that I run on. I'm a road race runner, so I run on the road or I run on a paved path. I don't really notice the same type of soreness after running on trails because everything's different, right? So I'm feeling soreness in both legs as opposed to when I come back from a run and it's a long one. Now, this isn't an everyday thing, but if I go out and do 8 miles one day, my left leg will feel a lot more strain. And I think that's because it's hitting the ground first. It's not really reaching my full range of motion when it comes to running. So that's an interesting thing to look at, and perhaps what I need to do is train more single leg with my left. And I think I learned something from this, and I think I can get a little bit faster by following this protocol here. It's it's hard when you think you have the whole plan. You think you can do it, you think you know what you're doing, but there's always a better way to do it, and that's just the truth. which leads me to my next thread. I titled this The Brutal Truth. Now, this is, I don't like a lot of these, but I'm going to focus in on this today because I'm just going to man up, right? And this is what these threads are. These are, I don't know how this ends up in my algorithm. I'm not a Andrew Tate guy or anything like that, but somehow these things always end up in my algorithm now, ever since Elon Musk acquired Twitter, which I will continue to call Twitter until the day I die. I will not conform to the X. What is X? I don't get what X is supposed to be. Maybe it's a sign from Elon telling us we need to X out the tab and just get off social media. However, there's a lot you can learn from social media. And so that's what I'm doing here. There are 10 brutal truths that every man needs to understand. This is by Jack Akis. I hope I say that right. It's spelled A-E-C-U-S. I don't know what the hell that is. I don't know if it's Greek. I don't know what language this is, but it's wisdom for men. And honestly, I mean, I can't really. Wisdom is wisdom. I think wisdom is non-binary, if I do say so myself. But anyway, we'll get into the 10 brutal truths that every man needs to understand. And I think that there's something we could learn from this, but I also think there's going to be a lot that we can laugh at. So let's move on. Number 1 is you are not meant to always be happy. I mean, that would be a utopian existence, right? So, yeah, this is kind of a Captain Obvious thing, and I think that's why I bookmarked it, because I was like, duh. Let's go on. 2, marriage won't fix your problems. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me, too. I notice this a lot in relationships, and I hope nobody takes this personal, because it's not a shot at anybody. It's just something that I see in the zeitgeist from day to day. Marriage won't fix your problems. Well, that's kind of just like how a baby won't fix your problems. You hear about somebody in a relationship and they're traveling down a rocky road and not the ice cream, because ice cream is great, but this relationship is not. And all of a sudden, boom, the woman in the situation is pregnant and they're happy again, right? They have this revitalization from the pregnancy, the news, whatever it is. Marriage or a baby, no matter what it is, you are tied to that person for life. And so if you're going through, and now let's not just say it's one problem, right? This isn't just one turbulent moment. This is something toxic. This is something that's constantly giving you issues, constantly giving you gruff. I'm not pointing out one side or the other here. I'm just saying what it is. If you're in a situation where there's constantly an argument or a battle and every day you're angry with each other, what makes you think that's the person you need to spend your entire life with? What makes you think, okay, this is time for me to make a decision that's going to last a lifetime? So I like the idea of marriage here because it's not really involving anybody else. I hate the idea that people think a baby is going to solve all of their problems with their partner, because it's not. And actually what you're doing is putting somebody at risk for their entire life. You're going to bring somebody into this world and show them what? What example are you going to give them? So I like that one. I guess I can agree with that brutal truth. That is the brutal truth, and it's also another kind of obvious one. Number 3, you have duties and responsibilities. Okay, so I think that this is going to be a little bit more funny than eye-opening. So we're already into number 3, and it's obvious, obvious, obvious. And if this isn't obvious to you, you need to wake up. Everybody has something that they need to do. And if you think you don't, then you definitely do. There is definitely something that needs to be done in your life, and you need to make a change. You need to take some responsibility. Idle hands are the devil's playground. That is something my dad has always said to me my entire life. And man, he was right. When I was younger, I had no purpose, I guess you could say. I mean, I always had a purpose. And God gives you a purpose the day that you're born. You just have to take some time to figure out what it is and find it. It took me a lot longer than the average bear to find out what mine was, but once I did, I hit the ground running. And that's what everybody needs to do. Figure out what your purpose is. Figure out what your passion is and figure out how you're going to attain and reach your goals. And that's what your duty is. That's what your responsibility is. Your duty in society is to be somebody who contributes. And you don't have to contribute by okay, let's just say this. Your contribution isn't your taxes. That's not to society, okay? That is to an entity. Your contribution to society is building the world one step at a time. We are all just pieces of the puzzle. This world is a very complicated puzzle that will never be quite put together. However, if you're not working to fit yourself in to where you're supposed to be in it, you're making it difficult for the rest of the people around you. And that's what you do by neglecting your duties and responsibilities. So, as obvious as this is it is also a very good eye-opening truth. You have duties and responsibilities. Number 4, nobody cares that you are unhappy. And that's true. And that's brutal. And sometimes that's hard to hear. Now, that's not for you to say that nobody around you cares. But nobody in the world cares, right? Of course, you're going to have people around you that want you to be happy, but a lot of people just, nobody out there can make you happy. You have to make yourself happy. And a lot of making yourself happy ties into the third. You have duties and responsibilities. You know, I didn't really know what happiness was until I found my purpose. And my purpose was just showing people that, in my opinion, let me just take a step up onto my soapbox here and let you know that I believe that my purpose on this earth is to be a walking example. A walking example of no matter how far gone you can be, you can make a comeback. I am a comeback story in my own right. And it's not finished yet. It's far, far, far from over. And I'm working hard for that every day because that's my responsibility. Once I realized that was my purpose, I never looked back. I never stopped. I'll never stop running. I'll never stop pushing myself. I'll never stop moving forward and growing any way that I can to be a better man. That is my purpose. That is my duty. That is my responsibility. And that is what makes me happy. And nobody cares. Nobody cared that I was unhappy, living a terrible lifestyle. Nobody cares that I am happy, doing things that make me proud, achieving things. Number 5, without discipline, you will fail. And this is true. And this is what happened to me heading into the Torrington Road Race. You know, my diet, I was not disciplined at all. I dialed it in a little bit too late. I wasn't disciplined, and I failed. I failed at my goal. Moving forward, all I can do is continue to stay disciplined, exercise that, and be better. That's the only thing that's going to happen with discipline is you will be better. You might still fail with a little bit of discipline, but you're going to fail a lot less harder. If you're going into something, if you have a goal and you're not working at it, you're not keeping yourself on track, you're not going to succeed. Just like me with this podcast, okay? If I'm not disciplined, putting it out every week, there are some days I sit down and I'm like, I don't want to talk into the microphone today. There are some days I get home from work and it's like, I don't want to edit this. I want to just sit down and watch Dexter. I want to sit down and eat ice cream or I don't want to go to the gym. There are always days like, listen, I love it. I love running. I love working out. I love staying active. But there are some days where I don't want to. However, that is failing because I'm not sticking to the discipline. I'm not sticking to the plan. And if I continue to do that, I won't be the best version of myself. I have to remind myself, okay, it's time to go. It's time to lock in. And that's where your discipline comes in. Number 6, nobody is ever coming to save you. Let me just put in parentheses after that, except for Jesus. But that's true. Nobody's going to make your way out for you. Nobody's going to pay your way for you. And let me just say this. If you think that when you get a handout, you've made it, you haven't. You won't feel the success that you will feel if you do it yourself. If somebody does something for you, you won't feel pride in that achievement. If somebody picks you up and carries you home, you're not going to feel the same way you would if you did it yourself. Doing it yourself is the best way to reach your goal. Yeah, sure. There might be somebody who'll help you along. There might be somebody who gives you advice. And if they do, take that advice and be proud of it if you do something with it. Because advice is only as good as you let it be. And that's something that I've struggled with a long time. I give great advice. Did I always give myself the greatest advice? No. But I did do a lot for people around me. But what did I do for myself? Maybe I thought one day somebody was going to come give me the key to unlock the door. You got to unlock that door yourself. And if you can't, sometimes you just got to kick it down. Don't wait. That's my biggest lesson, and that's my biggest piece of advice in life is like, don't wait for somebody else. If there's something you want to do it. Don't be afraid to do it either. It's good. I've done so much stuff by myself, concerts, movies, you name it, I've gone. And somebody might think you're weird, but are you? Are you weird for doing what you want to do? Are you weird for making yourself happy? I think that makes you successful. Number 7, girls are innately disgusted by weakness. It's interesting that a man wrote this, unless if he had a survey of 100 women and 100 out of 100 say that, but I don't know. There might be some ladies out there who like a weak man. I can't speak on this. I'm not a woman, so we'll move on. Number 8, if you truly want it, you can have it. I think that ties in with a lot of the other brutal truths that were in this thread. And that's true. If you want it, you can have it, but you need to have discipline and you need to follow your duty and your responsibility and you need to lock in and not wait for anybody to come give it to you. You need to go and get it. Number 9, your emotions must be secondary. And I think this is true. I think that the biggest emotion that you ever need to focus on is the feeling of accomplishment. If that even is an emotion. I mean, it's a feeling, right? If you're feeling accomplished, then you are accomplished. So yeah, if you're feeling accomplished, then you're doing something right. And that comes from doing things first. That's not just thinking about it. That's not just thinking of how it's going to make you feel. That is going out there, getting the work done, and seeing it in front of you. Seeing that productivity in front of you is going to be first every single time. The emotions that you'll feel will come after the actions. Actions make emotions more powerful. Actions make the emotions that you want out of life. And last but not least, number 10, if you're not motivated to succeed, then you will stay a nobody. Well, that one is kind of brutal, huh? Staying a nobody. What is a nobody? You could be a somebody, but you're somebody now. What's a somebody from a nobody town? Wise words of the weekend. But no, seriously. If you're afraid to succeed, then you're afraid to succeed. That's it. Why are you afraid to be successful? Sometimes I feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome on a day-to-day basis with the things that I'm achieving in my life. I don't think I'm a nobody though. I'm not afraid of the success. I'm striving for it. I'm pushing towards it every single day. I think that success in life is it's not it is subjective. It's not an objective thing. The first time I ever ran 3 miles straight without stopping, I felt so successful. Now you look at a marathoner and they say, oh, that's a warm up. But for me, that was a success. When you're trying something and when you're trying to achieve a goal and you hit it, you have to feel that success and you have to embrace it. Embrace your feelings in those moments. Because when you look back on the things that make you proud, that's going to be at the top of the list. I think, a lot of that was kind of, pull up your bootstraps, grow a beard, it'll put some hair on your chest. That was that was full of machismo, right? But it opened up a conversation. What is important in life? That's the conversation that I think it opened up, really. What is important in your life? And why are you afraid to do it? A lot of this waiting around, a lot of this looking for help, a lot of this reaching out your hand and searching for the right advice. It's you just waiting for something you already know you want to do. Do it. Have that conversation with yourself. How am I going to make this happen? We're going to have another conversation here, and this is the last thread that I'll go over. It's from Master Togan, another one of these machismo guys that keep popping up in my feed. Not a lot of that has been popping up in my feed as of late, though. I'm seeing a lot of sports things now that the football season is popping off. We have that 1 week, little bye week here between the preseason and the NFL season starting. Week 1 of college football. I am being overloaded with football highlights and fantasy football threads. I saw this one here and I thought, well, this is great because now this might strike you as strange or odd or who knows. Maybe it's just one of those insecurities I might have, but I don't always feel like I'm the best conversationalist. I feel like sometimes I can be a little bit awkward because I'm always in my own head. I'm not always the first person to go out and say, "Hey." I'm not always the first person to open up a conversation or break the ice. That's not the type of bear I am. I'm just moseying through, focusing on my tasks, focusing on my duties and my responsibilities and my goals. Those are the things that are most important to me, and they float around in my head constantly. Who wants to hear about how fast I ran my 4 miles today? I think about that all the time. Nobody wants to hear that, especially nowadays where like the most important things for a lot of people are the TV shows that they're watching or the movies they just went and saw. For me, it's the achievements that I do every single day that I get to hang my hat on. However, in order to, get by in the world, you need to be a good conversationalist. And so I saw this thread and it says how to be a better conversationalist. And I said, well, that'll be something, huh? And this might be a different type of conversation, but whatever. Let's get into it and see where it goes. Master Togan, get in with game. How to be a better conversationalist. Guys usually ask ladies a lot of questions because they think a question shows interest in the other person, and it does. But what it also does is put the burden of the conversation on the other person. So I think this guy might be a pickup artist just by reading this first tweet here. That's not really what I'm looking for. I have a beautiful relationship with a wonderful girlfriend who takes very good care of me, and I'm not out here looking for anything. However, this could blend in well with just talking to people in general, so let's get into it. The thread goes on to say, they can also see it as boring because you're not telling the other person anything new or interesting. What I mean is asking the other person a question about himself or herself. Example, Togan, where are you from? Me. Togan is speaking in first person here. The example says, you, Togan, where are you from? Me. Now the burden of conversation is on me, and I'm already bored because I know where I'm from. You're not adding value to the interaction. You're taking value. Okay? That's why I often advise make statements. That's why I often advise to make statements instead of asking questions. But don't only make statements instead of asking questions. Make cold read statements. This is not as hard as it sounds. I am completely lost with Master Togan. This guy seems like a guru of sorts. Here's an example of making a cold read statement. This is me speaking. Togan, I bet you're German or Italian based on your name. Togan, now I'm already in a good mood because you're adding value to the conversation by making a fun, imaginative statement. Haha, wrong guess. Can you see the difference here? Example 1. Where are you from? Example 2. I bet you're German or Italian based on your name. So, in my opinion, I see this and I go, okay, well, this is somebody who's like very self-imposed, feeling confident, deciding to say whatever he wants and make a joke out of anything. And I guess it is a fun little way to open it up. The thread goes on to say, in other words, don't be boring. Be creative, playful, complimentary, unpredictable. This requires work and practice, but it's very doable. More than anything, it's a mindset shift, a paradigm shift, in how you approach small talk. I hate small talk. Here's another example. You're at a party and you see a light-skinned girl with a relaxed vibe. You, where are you from? Her, sleepy emoji. Versus you look like a Igbo girl based on your looks. Her, hard eyes emoji. Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. I mean, perhaps it is, right? There are going to be people who like that approach, who like that confident, not afraid to be pointed out as a douchebag approach where it's like, sometimes I worry about stuff like this. Sometimes I hyper-fixate on things like this on a day-to-day basis because you look online and everybody's so quick to call anybody racist. You know, this is something that could be, you could get called out for being a bigot. Who knows? Not Togen, though. Togen's got it going on. In this Igbo girl example, you open up the conversation with several things to talk about. If you guess correctly, you piqued her curiosity. You look like an Igbo girl based on your looks. Her, how did you know? You, I know a lot of things. Now, Togen, doesn't this just kill the conversation? What can you say to that? What question do you ask back? How do you make a statement that you're already telling her that you know everything, right? If you get, the thread goes on to say, if you guessed wrong, you still have more things to talk about. You look like an Igbo girl based on your looks. No, I'm Yoruba. Oh, so you're just pretending to be an Igbo girl. Your light skin fooled me. This Togen guy is out of this world, man. Playfully accusing a girl of something helps create a playful conflict vibe with her. What you're doing is setting the frame on the conversation that she's a rebel, that she's naughty, that she's up to no good. This can easily turn into a sexual innuendo. Sexual innuendos equal flirting, or they equal a harassment case. Togen is a interesting guy that reminds me to stay away from a few of his threads, but I see where he's coming from in a way. Like, you don't want to open up a conversation and just kind of play 21 questions. That is a childish way to speak, I guess, you know, especially if you're older and you're in a dating pool or even just talking with people. You know, you want to have friendly banter, back and forth. Back and forth is what you're looking for. You're not looking for an interview. That's one thing about dating in particular, I suppose, that can be tricky, you know. You want to do something fun when you go out on a date, right? You want to go bowling or mini golfing, or you want to give a chance to see what kind of competitive level maybe somebody is on, or maybe you want to see how playful they are or how serious they are of a person. And if you're going out to dinner and you're sitting down, sometimes it can be like a job interview. You're just asking questions back and forth, and the conversation never really evolves past questions. 21 Questions is a great song. It's a great game to play when you're young. But as you grow older, as you mature, you already know a lot of things about yourself. So I can see where he comes off saying that, like, you don't want to hear about yourself. You don't want to hear yourself talk about yourself in such a standard, almost standoffish way. I can see that, where the question and answer format can come off as standoffish. It's like at some point you go, what do you really want to know, right? With a situation like this, you don't really have to get there. It can go from one question that's framed in a little bit of a different way, with a little bit of an assumption, and that one question can turn into a whole conversation about nothing, about something completely different. Togen had some good points here, but he also has like this lack of fear of judgment, which is great. You know, you shouldn't have to be judged, and no matter what I point out about Togen, he's actually right. He's actually absolutely right, because why conform? Why conform to the society norms that actually aren't normal? Everything's not racist. Everything's not sexist. However, the sexual innuendo thing, I mean, this is your first conversation with somebody. I mean, get to know them a little bit more before you're talking about porking them. At least that's my opinion. I don't know. I mean, I know that's kind of a general consensus of what a lot of people want, but some people want more. And if you want more, you got to kind of wiggle your way through it. But also have fun. Like, this is a fun way to talk. This is a fun way to speak to people. And let's have a conversation, right? Wow. I kind of did a whole 180 on Togan there, I guess. I mean, he's right. And that's kind of what life is. You know, taking a step back, looking at things from a different perspective, seeing what's good in it, seeing what's bad in it, weighing the pros and cons, and going, you know what? That's kind of all right. I think in life, that's the thing that I'm the most proud of. For a long time in my life, I was very selfish, and I only thought about the way I thought. Now, that's really the only way I could think, is the way that I think. However, you can have a discussion with yourself. You can have this conversation with yourself. What about this is interesting? What about that? And that's how you grow, is by using different perspectives. And that's what makes me proud, is the way that I've been able to look at life through different lenses and see people's issues, people's problems for what they are. And that's how you work through things with people. If you don't agree with them, you're not going to agree with everybody. But if you don't agree with them, that doesn't make them wrong. If you don't give them a chance, that makes you wrong. You know, you have to give people a chance to kind of speak their mind, and that's the thing I'm most proud of in my life, is that I've been able to do that. And what I want to know from you guys this week in the comments section is what makes you proud about yourself. You know, we went through some brutal truths. We broke down our psyche a little bit. That's going to happen in the real world. You're also going to accomplish some things if you're living in the real world. So, I want to hear about those. Tell me in the comment section below what you're most proud of. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at BumpyBetSlips, where I find all the threads that we go over when I stash them on the shelf. Thank you for being a bookworm. Like, rate, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And hey, no matter what you're going through, keep your head up. Football season is right around the corner. Thank you all for listening. God bless. Bitch. I always do that.
I'm a night rider. Every time that I call past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire, man. I'm a night rider.